And now I thought you might be interested in these. These are the top 10 searching ebooks in our collection. Number 1 for the last year. Number 1 comes in as The Help, actually, which is good because I can't buy any more copies of that. It's a Penguin book. Then we have 50 Shades of Grey, Explosive 18 and Smoking 17, both by Janet Ivanovich and her Stephanie Plum series, Buried Prey, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Litigators, Heaven is for Real, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, and Water for Elephants. So our big ones for 2012. No real surprises there. I haven't read all of them. In fact, I've only read like 2 of them, but they're all major titles that I'm sure we've all heard. And then I also looked into our top circulating e-audiobooks. This one is a bit different as we have a slightly different selection for our e-audiobooks, and I didn't purchase any for E.L. James. So we have The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Heaven is for Real, the ones between the 2 lists, Wicked Appetite, Mockingjay, Kid Lawyer, Until Proven Guilty, The Friday Night Knitting Club. That one kind of surprised me. The Confession by Grisham, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Yes, isn't that a bit surprising? Okay, other stats. Referrals here is how do people get to the Overdrive catalog. These are the top 2 highest referrals. After this, it breaks down a lot into your city pages, like Owatonna City website or Faribault, other ones like that. But you'll see a lot of people are getting there from the Aqua Browser listing. This can be from either the record in Aqua Browser, or for those of you that have the tab on top, it can be from the ebook tab, you know, up by My Account and all that. So if you don't have that ebook tab, you might want to consider it. We're getting a lot of people coming in that way. And the next one down is Google. Big surprise. Okay, in 2012, the cost of the average title was $24 and a penny, more or less. The prices changed throughout the year, so this is based on the titles that we bought at their end-of-year price. I went through and looked at our publishers, just to give you an idea of how much some of these titles cost. I only looked at the major ones where we have at least 5 titles purchased from the publisher. But these are the ranges. The most expensive e-audiobooks we have are the Pottermore ones, Harry Potter, at $85 a pop. And then the cheapest ones are HarperCollins audiobooks, which these are not limited to the 26 checkouts. Their audiobooks are the regular access rules. And those came in at about $17. For the ebooks, our most expensive ones were Crown Publishing. They have a fairly wide variety of materials, a lot of nonfiction though, and that tends to be fairly expensive, coming in about $60. And then Luna, which is part of Harlequin, came in about $7 a book. So if you're wondering why there's all those romances out there, it's because they're affordable and they're popular. They're really popular. And for comparison, since everyone's always concerned about HarperCollins, those are costing about $11.50 a book. If you have forgotten, HarperCollins are an exception to the rule for how our ebooks work. Everyone else, we purchase it and we are leasing it indefinitely as long as we stick with Overdrive. For HarperCollins, when we purchase it, we have it until it's been checked out 26 times, then I have to purchase another copy. I've only had to buy probably 20 books again so far. And judging by the CIRC for the cost, in 2012, it's costing us about 75 cents per CIRC. The waiting list, these are your requests that are out there. It is, at the end of the year, about 20 days if you end up on the waiting list until you get your book, which I would really like right now, as I've been on the waiting list since November for The Rise of 9. I want to get that book. I have it requested in print, too. I'm waiting to see which one comes in first. Okay, interesting news. This is our more general stuff. Starts off with Overdrive, though. If you have been looking in our Overdrive catalog, you will see that there is a new format out there. It is Overdrive Read format. It shows up as a little icon with a red border and says Read around it. This one is their attempt to clean things up a little bit for anyone who is reading on their computer. So you can do this one and read it just straight out of your browser instead of having to download it and go into Adobe Digital Editions. It's not available for all titles yet, but it's a fairly useful option. The next one is the Overdrive Next Generation. This is going to be their new approach to the catalog and to content reserve. Like I said, it was due out before the end of the year. Now they're saying first quarter. I'd like to give you more on that, but I'm not going to say anything definite until it actually comes out at this point, because they keep on changing stuff on me. If you have been watching your SELCO TechCast, oh, actually I'm not sure, is this one out yet?
It went out yesterday.
Yes, the one that just went out yesterday. Donovan was talking about a little study by Pew talking about how tablets have become more popular than e-readers. This is in general purchase, of course. We don't entirely know if tablets are being used more often than e-readers for e-reading, but they are the more popular purchase at this point. And speaking for myself, I love using my tablet. I don't even own an e-reader. Okay, this one is a bit surprising. The New York Times just ran a little article and study about e-book prices. There was a Department of Justice lawsuit back in summer about agency pricing and e-book pricing conspiracies, basically, between 5 of the big 6 publishers. And they basically came out saying, you can't do that. Everyone was kind of hoping this would mean a drop in e-book prices, but for various reasons, that hasn't really happened. They've stayed basically the same since this lawsuit came out. It has more effect on the public than us, but it's still something to be aware of. And there's also a recent article that while e-book growth is still phenomenal, it is not growing as fast as it once was. But, of course, you have to realize there is a certain point where you reach a horizontal limit and it can't go any farther. So that's just something that is out there. These slides will be going up on the SELCO website, and if you want to go to the full articles, they're linked right there on this slide. Okay. That was actually a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. Does anyone have any questions about ebooks?
I was just wondering with Random House merging with Penguin, you mentioned the help you couldn't get anymore because of Penguin.
I haven't heard anything yet, but I am anxiously awaiting news to see whether we'll still be able to purchase Random House titles or not. The upside is Penguin has started working with 3M and their product for ebooks. So, and Overdrive has hinted that they are talking with Penguin again. They haven't said definitely. They're talking about trying to bring back some publishers who used to work with them, and that pretty much means Penguin. So we're going to see how that plays out.
Can you give me an idea of how quickly we're adding books?
I basically do a weekly purchase on Fridays, and it depends on several things, how many new bestsellers there are, how many patron suggestions there have been that week. But I generally purchase about $1,000 worth of materials every week. That can range from about 20 items to about 50 or 60, depending on how expensive they are.
Have you heard of anything about Overdrive being able to have Nook have the Overdrive media content capability? Where they're, I just read it in Library Journal. I don't really know how to explain it. It sounded
yes, I think I understand what you're talking about. A couple months ago, actually, the Nook came out with the ability to get the Overdrive Media Console app from their store, rather than having to sideload from a computer. It's also available for the Kindle Fire.
So that'd be pretty nice, since
Yes.
you have to plug it in and do all that kind of stuff.
So you can do it directly, like you can from a tablet.
A point to that, though, as someone who owns a Nook Touch, that's only valid for Nook tablets and Kindle tablets. It doesn't work with, say, the black and white.
Oh, okay.
That's true. Sorry. Anything else ebook related?
Schools.
That's my later presentation.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's coming up after the break.
If there are, I've got who's wearing as well.
Well, obviously we're not a school, but I'm getting more requests for children's books.
Okay.
Parents are coming in with the
Just
requests.
for leisure reading? Not curriculum-based, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
And I mean J books.
I would agree with that, Bonnie.
J and E.
Yeah.
That is on my list to work on that collection this year, so.
Did you have suggestions? And if you have extra money.
Well, my question is, I don't do it, so I don't know. I don't look into it to see if what availability there is. I mean, if they were out buying it, are there lots for them to buy even?
There's a fairly good selection.
And depends on the publisher, I suppose, as to whether they're available. But
I know off the top of my head I've seen a lot of young adult literature, and I've seen a fair amount of juvenile, but I haven't really looked for it.
I've got a question for the group. One of your questions that's probably more important. Yeah.
Content reserve, I cannot, what is that?
Content reserve is our backside to Access Overdrive. That's where we go and look at reports and where I go in and purchase materials.
So Tyler mentioned that we had broken the record yet again on the day after Christmas, which was not unexpected. We were kind of on red alert around here, typically when we get those kinds of spikes in borrowing. Then we also get a spike in emails coming into the help desk via the Overdrive help link. And we really didn't see it this time around. So I'm really curious to know what your experience was in the last couple of weeks here. Whether you have seen an increase in requests for help from patrons.
well, Oceana has, and in anticipating this, we had classes the Saturday after Christmas, and this last week we had them in Blooming Prairie, and we're running them again the end of January.
Has it been more basic, I need to know how to do this, or has it been, I'm having trouble because something isn't working? Oh, simple.
I mean, there's always a spike in requests for help after Christmas. There just always is, and there's always going to be with, you know, people that get gifts or buy gifts or whatever. But I don't think it's been, I feel like for me it's been maybe a little less this year, but nothing unmanageable.
Might have been more with the tablet, you know, and I give them your handout, and I haven't had any questions back. How about the Fire HD? I have somebody buying that. Is that any different? I said, I don't know. I haven't worked with it. It is easy to work with. All right. She hasn't come back, so I figured she figured it. I gave her the handout, and I haven't.
Well, I laugh, but we have a fair number of people contact the help desk, we respond, and we never hear back from them, so we just assume that it worked. Or they got fed up and broke the device.
I was going to say, I pass up those handouts on your website all the time.
Yeah. I have it back.
Sure.
If you ever run across a device that does not cover either our information or Overdrive, let us know.
Because there are a lot of them out there. I did an ebook roadshow down in Lanesboro, and someone brought up this device I'd never even heard of before. I had to try to troubleshoot it too. It was fun.
Yeah, right. If that's all you're
give Tyler kudos for, we have a couple of e-reader people who are big into romance books and stuff. They're thrilled you're buying all those.
She buys that genre. I do everything else.
You're about it everything. Whenever they go up, they're like, screens is hiding in the corner.
Okay, anything else for ebooks? Okay.
All right, well, let's you keep rolling.
Yep, I have the next one as well. You're seeing a lot of me today. Okay, this one is a suggestion from ILS Ops. They wanted us to put in a little segment on review of patron registration. So since I am our lead trainer here and one of our two CERC trainers, I'll be covering this one today. A lot of you, this is probably fairly old hat, but we're going to be going over it just in case. So, when it comes to creating a new account for someone who comes into their library, first, you need to find out if it actually is a new account. Perhaps they've just moved into the state, or perhaps they are moving from somewhere else in the state or somewhere else in the region. So whenever someone comes in and needs a library card, one of the first things you need to do is to search the Horizon database for this person. So there are several different things that will go on here. If they're coming from somewhere that's in the SELCO region, they will already be in there, unless they didn't have a library card, in which case, tisk. But go ahead and search in the Horizon database, and then at that point you can create a patron record for them based off your own policies with your own library card number and all of that, once you follow your rules, like determining their address. Each of you have your own rules on that. If they come in from a non-SELCO Minnesota library, if they've moved into your region, then it's fine for you to go ahead and create them a new record with your card number and all that. If they're just down visiting, it is policy that you can use your library card at any library in the state, any public library in the state of Minnesota. So if they're just down for a little bit, use their library card number. It is suggested that you contact their region first to verify that they are in good standing. But when you create the patron record for them in Horizon, which again, check first if they don't already have one, you will use their library card number. You don't issue them one of your own. So this doesn't happen the way that it should around the state, as I know I've been to Hennepin and they've given me an additional barcode. But you should be using their barcode number. Other than that, create it as if it were one of your patrons, with the exception of the location, where you can fill it out based on the county that they live in the state of Minnesota. Again, and the final one is that they claim they've never had a library card in Minnesota. Check Horizon first. You never know. A lot of people like to try to create a new patron record because they have fines on an old one. So, seriously, the number of friends in college said, oh, I want to go to the library, but I have fines on there, so I'm going to try to get a new library card. Like, no. They're going to check. But always check the database to make sure that they're not in there and they're trying to get this over on you. But other than that, it's just standard patron creation with your library card number, all of your information on your B staffs and all of that. Okay, when it comes to creating new accounts, as I said, visitors from non-SELCO Minnesota libraries are using their own library card numbers. So starts with the 2, starts with the 3, whoever region it is, enter that one. Otherwise, it follows with your own library card number, and I'm sure you all know your institution codes on there. I know a fair number of them at this point. Next field to look at would be the PIN. This is the one that's required to access to my account. Not all the schools use this, but almost all the public libraries do. Without the PIN, they can't access their account through Opera browser, so they can't do anything on their own. You have to do everything for them, so it's really useful to give them a PIN and lighten your workload. And if they do end up forgetting their PIN, you can always reset it in Horizon as well by editing their patron record. Okay, B types. This is one of the next fields up there, after expiration date. After expiration date will fill itself in based on the B type. B types are the rules that govern a class of patrons. They're customized by location. So your location might have the AB type for adults, where they can request up to 20 books, check out 25 books, and they have the standard fine rate. And then the J, juvenile one, they can check out up to 50 books because juvenile books are so small or something like that. And they're fine exempt at your library. These are based on your library. So at each library, it is different what these rules are. So while you might share the same B type as another library, you might both have the AB type, the rules will be different based on your location. If you choose a B type that has not been customized at your library, it will go to a default that has been set up for your library. So I have seen this when I go out to other libraries. Someone has a CS, college student B type. They're like, we never use that B type. I don't know what's up with that. Someone must have just put it in. It will go to the location default, which will probably be the same as adults, but not necessarily. Okay, the next field up on a patron record is the B stats. B stats are different than B types as they are, from their name, statistical as opposed to topical. So these are what are used in Web Reporter to bring up reports on your patron usage. You can have multiple B stats. That is perfectly acceptable. But there are some limitations. Each of the B stats are put into a group, for the most part, such as BTs for B types. They copy the B type. There are CIs for city, COs for county, GR for graduation years. Every patron should have no more than one per group on their record. So you shouldn't have graduation year 2012 and 2013 on your record because that makes no sense. Okay. Now, when it comes to BStats, they need to be used consistently. If you are not using them consistently, they are statistically anomalous. There is no real validity to their usage when you look at the reports. If only 10% of your population has their ethnicity down in their records, you can't really say, oh, this is what's happening when we have Caucasian people come in to check out materials, because you don't know. There's 90% of your population unaccounted for. Okay, the one other special thing about BStats are CI/CO. These are city and county BStats. These are only important for public libraries. School libraries generally get to ignore them. These are very important because they are used in calculation of your funding at the end of the year. So what it comes down to is there are CI and CO BStat groups. These are actually considered the same group. You should only be using one from either of them. The person either lives in the city or lives in the county. This is based on their actual house address. If they live in the city limits, then they are given a CI BStat. If they live outside of city limits, they're given county BStats, even if their mailing address is in the city. It depends on the location of the house. This comes down to where they pay their taxes. If you live in city limits, you pay different taxes than county people, and county people have to worry about the maintenance of effort. So, only one, CI or CO, when you're creating a patron record. Okay, the next thing on the record is the name of the patron. Convention is to do last name and then first name. As proper librarians, we all do this. And we are also supposed to do this in caps lock. This largely comes down to the mailing of notices. I have checked into this one because I've always been curious. I'm like, it looks like someone's screaming at me on the screen. But it's for the post office and the mailing of the notices to go out. That's why we do them in caps lock. Location will default to your own when you create a record. It is the patron's primary library, even if it is not where they live. So if the patron is going to be going to your library more of the time, even if they live closer to another one, they can have your library as their default location. When it comes to addresses, verify by your library's policy. If there is a coded field down there for city, if there is no city available in that coded field, put the city in line 4 at the address. These are used for notices, and there is also a checkbox down there whether they are going to receive pre-overdue notices or not. And there is another field for name and email. This would be the name that appears on the email itself, how they want to be addressed in that one, so you don't need to put this in caps lock. And then, of course, their email address. If there is a syntactical error in their email address, SELCO will notice it, or you will notice it when you send out your notices. Horizon will tell you there was an error sending out this, if there's a space somewhere in the address or you forgot the @ sign. However, if it is a bad email address, the only way to notice this is to have someone CC'd at your library on the sending of the notices and then bounce back to them, because it doesn't bounce back to SELCO to our email address. We have no idea for the most part. Okay, editing accounts. If someone does come in and they already have account in Horizon, they are moving and they are going to be going to your library from now on, there are a few things you need to change. Of course, you need to change their BStat based on where they will be living at this point and their address. You can also put in a temporary address for their old ones. These ones have expiration dates on them and will go inactive after a certain point, but will be stored in the system. There's also a lovely little trick about this for children in joint custody, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And then, of course, you need to change the primary library to wherever it will be, and also check for their email address, their phone number, things like that. Finally, for deleting patron records, for the most part, you shouldn't need to worry about this. We do a quarterly purge here at SELCO for patrons that have been inactive, have been expired for 2 years. They could have been inactive for 4 or 5, I believe. But we will take care of that. Johnny sends out an email quarterly telling you about this. And just as long as they don't have any fines, blocks, or notes on their record, we will delete them automatically. You don't really need to worry about deleting patron records. If a certain situation comes up, which I can't imagine that you need to do this, you need to have the patron record open to editing before you can delete it. You can't do it from just having it up in the checkout window. Okay, that's all I have for the basics of patron registration. Unless anyone has any questions, we can go on break. Oh?
2 questions. For the CICO, if you get someone that's out of the SELCO region, like if they're from Hennepin County, what do you put in?
There will be a CO for every county in the state of Minnesota, and a few in Iowa and Wisconsin.
So if you do Hennepin County, then it's not going to come up as being. I'm thinking of taxes and how much we, the county pays.
I count them as other when I do my stuff for funding, if it's outside the region.
I don't know how it counts. Well, I think everything's automatically.
Yeah, but you can get a report and it will show all your registered borrowers and your CERCs.
Because I have done it that way, and then someone said, no, you're supposed to put city, Preston City. I don't know.
We are required, SELCO is required by state law to report the amount of circulation that happens between regions. So I don't really care if it's Hennepin County, Minnetonka, or Plymouth, or Ridgedale, or wherever in Hennepin County. I'm responsible for reporting the fact that it was this county and it was the Melsa region. Okay. So the CO is just fine. We just need to know of the 87 counties, it's not our 11. It's one of those someplace else so that I can tell the state library that we had this many people from Travis Sioux and this many people from Gitchigami.
Okay. And the second one is, what about these patrons from out of the region who check out your books and never bring them back? You just lost them, or how are you supposed to ever get them back?
Well, it depends on if it's out of region, Wisconsin or Iowa.
Well, it's Minnesota.
Oh, if it is Minnesota, then the same state law that says that SELCO has to report the statistics from other counties. Each of the respective regions has made a contractual agreement with SELCO that says, if you have lent something to a Gitchigami patron and Gitchigami patron does not return your book, you need to let SELCO know. SELCO will bill Gitchigami and return the money to you. Okay. And likewise, if a Preston patron is at Gull Lake for the summer and doesn't return the book to the Brainerd Public Library, the Brainerd Public Library notifies the Gitchigami Regional Library. Gitchigami bills SELCO on behalf of the Preston patron. So the regions are making good on their patrons from around the state. So again, it goes back to why that CO is important so that we know which Minnesota county this person lives in, because then we go back to that region.
Okay.
I had not ever heard to call another region to check on the status because I mean, isn't it just their name that's public record? What could you actually say to someone if they called you?
Yeah, we couldn't do that.
Well, I know Rochester Public does this with Northfield,
Well,
I believe. They call all the time.
I'm Northfield, and if they call, we
I
can't.
might be wrong. It might be one of the other big ones.
Anything other than the name.
Yeah, Rochester. Well, no, the state law says that the data is private except for valid library purposes. So just as we know information is shared, detailed information about what books people have out for interlibrary loan, I mean, finding out about whether or not this is a person who has $800 worth of overdue materials or lost materials from one library and is now using your library because they're coming to try and scam you because they're a bad risk. I have to say, I don't remember that part of the step.
Is anybody practicing that? I'm just curious.
No.
We call Rochester almost daily.
Rochester.
Almost
Okay.
daily. And then they are getting much better about calling us too. And we call up and we just say, we need to verify a patron's account. And it depends on who I talk to. Sometimes they want the number, sometimes they want the name. And we're just looking to find out if, you know, how big of fines they have, if they have a clean record, whatever. We call every single day.
I have
Every
a
day.
sneaky suspicion that that works with Rochester because of being in Olmsted County. Lori, I can't.
These calls from other libraries too, asking about cards. Yeah, we have. And then my other question I had was, we get, I'm not going to say a huge number, but we get a fair number of students from Crossroads College, and they get issued a SELCO library card. So they've already got a card in the system, so they have 2 cards. So
We have that with Sharon.
we just go with it. I mean, is that?
I don't know about with Crossroads. With schools in general, that's fine. Students can have 2 library cards, 1 public, 1 school.
And
But I
that's
don't
when,
remember
and that's when Tyler does his next presentation after break about ebooks. We'll be talking about just that.
Then they have huge fines on the one card and no fines on the other. So then what?
And their huge fines is on which one?
It's, well, it'd be the SELCO card. No, the SELCO card.
I'm thinking about when we sort of call people students in schools, or we call them public library patrons. And when we added Crossroads, we had this one library, that being an academic, and I think for purposes of like how we do the funding formula, man, this is like making my head work. We counted them in the school world because, of course, these were students. So in my mind, we should be issuing a public library card because it would be just like you would issue a Stewartville public library card to a Stewartville high school student, correct?
Right. They came in and applied, yeah.
Whereas we treated, because we didn't want another whole class of libraries for the funding formula for Community Resource Centers, we sort of snuck them in to the public library world because at one point when they first were considering even coming on the system, they were going to actually come on the system as an official branch of the Austin Public Library. And then it was the decision of Austin not to put them, so they'd be a branch like Blooming Prairie. And then they decided, no, they didn't want to have that close of a relationship. They've got a great relationship with the Austin Public Library, but they wanted them to have their own entity because of their primary clientele. And it's a very small and intimate environment and not as big and possibly intimidating as the Austin Public Library. So we sort of call the Parenting Resource Center patrons a public library patrons. So we have some anomalies, but they're so small in the scheme of 400,000 registered borrowers. But for Crossroads, I think we should treat them as students. And is that what you've been teaching? Now that I've added my opinion.
Crossroads, I haven't even considered. I suppose it depends on whether they're down to find exempt B-types at Crossroads. I'm not sure if they are.
To look that up. I don't know. I sort of think of them as students because that's what they are. They're just not in high school. They're in college, but they're students. They're not public library people.
But, so, I mean, our question has been, you know, so they've got the messed up SELCO card, then they go off to college and get a brand new card, and now that card's clean.
Well, but I would say that just like you would do if they had a messed up high school card, so if they had a clean high school card and a messed up public library card, you wouldn't use the Stewartville high school card to check out something. You would say you need to clean up your public library card.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, we've been trying to get a clear answer for a while about it, so that's fine. If that's what we'll do, we'll do.
Call me tomorrow and I might give you a different answer. But does that not make logic?
Yeah.
That if we're going to treat
but we've tried, yeah.
Students as a student card,
Right. So they should be using that card at school.
At school. Right. And if they then have a public library card, because they have to have a Rochester public library card. Michael, is that sort of how you remember it as well?
Yeah. Even if I don't remember that, to me, it's the logic. I mean, why would that be any different than it was when I was state?
Right. It just happens to be that the Crossroads student is
already
in our database as opposed to
Right.
the Winona State
Right.
person.
Right.
That's fine. Like I say, we've just been trying to get an answer for a while on it, so that's fine.
I had a question. It's kind of semi-related. What happens sometimes, we'll have a patron say from, and they'll have big fines, and then they'll move to Faribault, and they'll give us a different name. Maybe it's a hyphenated name, different version. One way or another, they end up with a duplicate card. So if we catch that, can we take the old fines from the first card and combine them onto their new card?
I don't believe there's a technical way to do that.
There is a way to do it manually. I don't know if there's an automated way to do
You
it.
can put your card on the one with the fines.
And delete.
And delete your clean card.
I was wondering if there's already fines in the new one. You can manually recreate the fines on the other card. Yeah. Or I don't know if there's a way to merge them.
We put notes on ours. We'll say like, here's a note C that they have an Austin card, and then something to the, and then I'm like, something to the back, must clean up Austin card before they can use their other.
James has his hand up.
I was just going to say basically you can block with the exact fine amount, waiver the old account, and then delete the account. Yeah. You have the same amount on the
So wave the materials over into the new card and delete.
Yeah, take the old card, waive the amount, whatever it is, edit the record, delete it,
Just add
and then add a manual block for fee and put in $50 and say,
I would have a problem
And you will notice
taking my
the lost
lost fines from,
Well, I'll find where they pay, though.
what?
Find
No,
where they
fines are
pay.
different, but if it's like lost things, I would not want them waived from.
I was just putting a separate manual fee on there for any lost materials, but overdue fees can be combined because those are based on where you pay.
But you have nothing to prove to the patron.
Just getting back to contacting other regions, if we are supposed to be doing that, could you have a link with their phone numbers or something so we go through you to contact other regions?
No,
To verify a
registration.
payment.
You come to us when they've been back.
But yeah, as with Rochester, yeah, we call them regularly too. Basically, because we have people coming in with Rochester cards, and we call to find out, is this still in your system?
Right.
Usually.
And are they coming to St. Charles because they owe $800 at Rochester? and they're
Right.
trying
Or
to
you know, or is this card actually expired at Rochester? In which case, we'll give them a new one. Otherwise, we'll just use the Rochester number.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a Rochester thing, and if you, one thing I would hit that one for is when we take the Rochester number, so we can our patrons because they were clear in Rochester. If they're expired in Rochester, and then they go to request amendment item,
Right.
it will block it because they're reading it, memory reading it from 2
Right.
Right. Yeah, but that's not only Rochester court that uses that for any region, and they have to go request amendment. In the meantime, they've expired in Arrowhead. You're not going to be able to do any activity.
Great.
Which makes sense because that's their
So they end up with 2 expiration dates.
Right. I usually check and find out when.
If they